So Mario, Bertrand, thank you so much for taking a few minutes today to speak to us about innovations and also about the label Beyond 1,000 Solutions. Mario, beginning with you, your perspective as Group CEO, you have said that it's no longer, we cannot expect political leaders to take full responsibility, only responsibility for sustainability. And as a business leaders need to stand up and take more action. Governments are thankfully moving ahead and are starting to do that. We're seeing that more. Companies also need to be part of the solution. So as an insurer, what is Zurich's role here? And what are maybe the 3 actions or achievements regarding innovations and solutions at Zurich?
Yeah, I do think that it doesn't matter who you are. We are an insurance company, but independent of that, there is a common responsibility for fixing the planet and avoiding the challenges that are ahead of us. This is such a complicated situation that without the contribution of everyone, it would be impossible to create the improvements that we need to create soon. We have little time, and we have to really engage ourselves in a massive transformation of the way we produce, of the way we live, of the way we behave. So we have to contribute. Each one has to contribute. I don't think there is an holy grail in this. Many actions are necessary. None of them are sufficient to resolve the issue. Now, as Zurich, we are committed to contribute to the improvement of the sustainability of the planet. And we're taking lots of little actions internally on our behaviors. But we're also taking some important external action. The one I'm most proud of is the Zurich Forest, where we're working with Sebastião Salgado and his foundation on reforesting a piece of land which is very close to the heart of Salgado. But we will love to continue doing that, and also we will love to expand this to other forests in the world. Again, we don't resolve the planet issues by planting trees, but trees are necessary if we want this planet to survive. And so among the many things that we're doing, this is probably the one I'm most proud of.
So then looking at the Zurich Forest, looking at the other things that we're doing, Zurich is having an impact here, and obviously we're looking at the long term, but what do you see maybe some of the challenges for the near term when it comes to this topic?
The challenges are, first of all, our behaviors and mindset, our uses and tradition. We created this situation. The planet was absolutely sustainable. Humans damaged it and created the risks that we're living today. So the most important challenge is how do we change our behavior? Then probably the next challenge for me is time, is speed of change. Because we have been taking actions, but not fast enough. And so we need to accelerate now, and we need to figure out how we can, in the span of a few years, resolve really the issues. And then probably the third challenge, which is quite visible, is technology. Because we have been living with technologies that use a lot of carbon, that consume and need carbon. And how do we transform ourselves in a technology-driven planet or society which will use very little or no carbon at all, or actually will put the carbon back into the ground.
Now, Bertrand, turning to you, you heard Mario reference some of Zurich's innovations, some of the solutions. You've also just heard him speak about the challenges. Your label, Beyond 1,000 Solutions, clearly that's more than 3. That's over 1,000 solutions. What are the most groundbreaking? Give us maybe 3 of the groundbreaking solutions from your label.
If I just give you 3 examples, I think it will gut the real meaning of it. It's more than 3. It's basically how to be more efficient. Because today, if our world is in such a trouble, it's because we waste 75% of the energy that is produced, half of the food, half of the natural resources, even 95% of the waste are wasted because people don't understand that they can be used as a resource. So all these solutions that we have identified allow the world to be more efficient, to recover the heat that is lost, to use the waste to make energy, to reduce the energy consumption in engines, in buildings, to produce cement and concrete with less CO2. All these solutions have in common to be efficient, to protect the environment, and to be financially profitable. And this is really important because if you have, and here I give you an example, a company that recovers the heat from the chimney of a factory, stores it, and gives it back to the factory. It's a new business opportunity for the company who can hire new people, create jobs, and develop itself. And it's a huge reduction in the energy bill of the company who is saving its heat. And it's also good for the environment. So you see that today we have no reason anymore to have a fight between ecology and economy. And one proof of it is what we're having today. It's very encouraging. It's the CEO of a big financial institution who is speaking about protecting the environment. 10 years ago, it would not have been possible. It would just have been NGOs speaking together of how to change the world. Today, we are in action because protecting the environment has become more profitable than destroying it.
Absolutely. So clearly, we all play a role here. Thinking out loud. So, social interest, what you talked about, investments, innovations clearly are the catalyst for change. But I'm just trying to understand your perspective. Do you think our current environment is the perfect breeding ground for I don't know, upcoming innovations, more innovations? Do we need more? Looking forward and thinking ahead, maybe there's people out there who have this misguided belief around the technology is going to come. It's not yet here, but it will come, so that will solve itself in the future. That's a bit misguided. What is your thinking around this?
If you want to be absolutely certain to have a lot of applause when you give a speech, you have to say, I am in favor of innovation. And then everybody applauds. But it's useless. Because if you say that you are in favor of innovation, what does it mean? It means that we don't have the tools today, the means today, to solve the problem, and that we have to wait longer in the future in order to have the solutions. So, of course, you need innovation for the future, but we already need to use today the innovation that is not yet used. There is so many solutions that people don't know. And today we have 1,150 solutions identified worldwide, but people don't know about them. People don't use them. And this is the problem. So we already have to use what we have today. And of course, for the future, we can do better, but don't wait before starting to act.
Okay, then bouncing back on the comment you just made, these 1,000+ solutions are here. They're on our doorsteps. The question is why? Why don't you think people are fully embracing them yet? And what do you think it will take to have them scaled up and adopted?
What I'm going to tell you is not very sexy, but it's the reality. The problem are the regulations. Because the regulations today allow people to pollute legally. With the regulations of today, the legal framework of today, you can use old, inefficient technologies. You can put as much CO2 as you want in the atmosphere, as much plastic in the ocean, as much chemical in the soil. It is allowed, which means that a lot of people will tell you, I'm not going to change because what I do is legal. This is why it's very, very important to modernize the legal framework, to adapt the standards and the norms of energy efficiency, pollution, and everything on the technologies of today. So what will happen if we are much tougher in the requirements? Well, we will create a need, a necessity, to use these technologies that will be pulled on the market. And this will be a fantastic incentive for startups, for also big corporations, to give all the products that are needed to the consumers. And then the consumers will be able to be much more efficient. They will save a lot of natural resources. They will be able to work in circular economy, and we will really have a change. And who is going to help this regulation to be modernized? If it's only the green parties, it will make resistance with the economy. So my philosophy is to bring the CEOs of big corporations to ask for modern regulations, to ask to have all these legal framework that will be the incentive for the change. And then the governments will listen, because if it comes from the world of business, it's the proof that all these new technologies are creating jobs and allowing to make profit.
I see. So you already took one of my questions. You already answered it, which was around the regulatory framework and how does it play a role. Mario, I'm curious. The question was for both you and Bertrand. How does regulatory framework play a role here? Do you have the same perspective? Do you have a different perspective there? I have a feeling I know the answer, but I'm curious.
No, I do agree completely with Bertrand. I mean, the problem today is that it is not just legal, it's also very cheap to pollute. And so every company has a strong financial incentive to keep polluting. On the other side, the transformation is going to be expensive. They have to change the supply chain. They have to change the way they manage and produce the goods. We all have to change our behaviors. If it is so cheap and if it is so legally, I would almost say recommended to keep polluting, why would you do that? So regulation has to provide that. I've been advocating for a long time for a carbon tax, a real carbon tax, which will make polluting expensive and will adjust the financial incentives to the companies. On our side, as investors, as we are in the financial markets, it's also important that the regulation will not penalize us from investing in these infrastructure transformation projects that happen. This has been the case for a long time. We've been disincentivized to invest in finance these transformational projects. I don't think this is wise. I think the society needs investors to fund this transformation, and we need wise, proper regulation to speed up the transformation of our economies and our industrial world.
Mario, you've already touched on the investments, and that's actually my next question for you. So clearly, institutional investors do face challenges in the financial markets when it comes to the topic of climate change. However, there is some hope, and we are seeing some forward-looking movements. As part of as founding members of the UN's Net Zero Asset Owner Alliance, what is our role here?
Well, I mean, our role has been to really participate, not just kicking off, but participating to the development of this alliance of investors to define the standards by which we understand what the net zero means, by applying these standards to a number of companies we invest on, and by making clear to the companies that do not respect the standards that they won't be financed. And so there is a cost of pollution or lack of care. Now, all this is evolving and we are improving ourselves, and there are still many things that we don't fully understand today. The interesting developments recently on understanding the pollution contribution from supply chain goods and services is quite important to me. And we will continue to refine and evolve the methodologies and then adjust our investment decisions. At the same time, a similar effort has been launched recently on the underwriting, which is the other part of our business. And we will not just contribute, but we will actively lead to that effort in the same way, meaning that we will try to push the net zero carbon development also through underwriting decision, and we will talk to customers about that.
So Bertrand, how can your organization help Zurich on its sustainability journey?
I think it would be a very interesting collaboration because the goal of an insurance like Zurich is to reduce the risk of their customers. And we could, for example, take the main solutions that we have identified and see which one fits with the needs of Zurich's consumers and customers, and implement these solutions at the place of the customers of Zurich. In that sense, Zurich would not only be the company insuring the risk of the clients, but also bringing the solutions to reduce the risk.
Bertrand, one last question for you. So you've mentioned the 1,000 plus solutions. They've been identified. I think you said 1,150, if I heard you correctly. What are the next steps?
The next step now is to bring these solutions to big corporations and to heads of states and governments in order to give them the tools that they need to reach their environmental and climate goals. Because the awareness is here, the declarations are here, people want to be carbon neutral by 2050, but a lot of people don't know how to do it because they don't have access to all these solutions. It took us 4 years with all my team and hundreds of experts and thousands of corporations and startups everywhere in the world to identify these solutions. So we are here to help. It's a non-for-profit organization, and we want to bring these solutions to everyone to reach their goals. And now what we also need is to take on board the financial world. Because although these solutions are all absolutely profitable for the one who produced them as well as for the consumer, they need, nevertheless, upfront investment. Because in the beginning, it's a bit more expensive, but because it is more efficient, on the long term, you recover much more money than what you paid. So you need investments. And this is the good news, because a lot of financial institutions have a lot of money to invest. They know very well that it is dangerous now to put it in fossil energy because the return on investment can only go down, and the return on investment for renewable energies and efficient solutions can only go up. So we need upfront investment now, and this is where a lot of money will flow on the market in order for this ecological and energetic transition to happen. So I'm optimistic when I see all the solutions that can be used, how much the financial world is ready to contribute. Now we need to go very fast, because it's the rate of implementation of these solutions that will determine if we will succeed in our goal or not.
I think it's so great to hear you speak of this optimism and the fact that you're optimistic about it. At Zurich, we are also behind optimism, so that is fantastic. Bertrand, thank you so much to you. Mario, thank you so much to you for this exciting discussion, very interesting discussion, and thank you for the insight you've provided.
With pleasure.
Welcome.
Thank you, Mario. Nice to discuss these fantastic topics together.
Great seeing you. Next time in person, hopefully.
Absolutely. Looking forward.